The episode kicks off with Rick and Sparrow leaving the chaos of the Grand Theater behind. Riding through the desolate landscape on Rick's bicycle, the atmosphere is heavy with unspoken emotion. Rick reflects on Sparrow's loyalty, the painful memories of his past, and the devastation surrounding them. They soon stumble upon a suspicious path, abandoning the bike to investigate further. Their journey leads them to a dramatic confrontation on a hillside road. There, they find Hyder and Aretha, Hyder standing resolutely, and Aretha crying as revenants battle viciously nearby. Rick steps in with his stabilizer, calming the revenants and ensuring their safe passage. The group joins forces and uses 2 trucks to traverse a dangerous bridge filled with zombies, but tensions rise again as the revenants break into conflict. Rick and Sparrow use the stabilizer once more to regain order, eventually pushing the convoy forward. The path grows darker as tragedy strikes. Aretha succumbs to infection, losing control and transforming into a powerful foe. Despite the emotional toll, Rick is forced to burn her with his flamethrower. The group presses on, their losses weighing heavily. Finally, Rick and Sparrow arrive at the ominous Breakdawn stronghold. They navigate through an underground pipe and emerge into a massive, hollow structure. Battling hordes of zombies and avoiding deadly traps, they push through to the heart of the building, where they encounter their greatest enemy yet, the giant puppet. This towering mechanical monstrosity dwarfs Rick and Sparrow, armed with a massive weapon and cables that thrash like deadly whips. Rick's G3 rifle and flamethrower are put to the ultimate test as they engage in a fierce battle. Although they manage to knock the giant puppet down, it rises again, more ferocious than ever. Forced to retreat, Rick and Sparrow escape through a pipe and regroup with Hyder. Fueled by rage and determination, Rick refuses to give up. He storms back into the puppet building, jumping directly into the fight. The showdown is intense, with Rick's relentless attacks finally overpowering the colossal enemy. After landing the final, decisive blow, Rick takes a moment to refill his weapons and assist the wounded Hyder. The episode concludes with Rick, Sparrow, and Hyder leaving the puppet building. Though victorious, the journey has left its scars, and the road ahead remains uncertain. But in their bond, they find strength to face the challenges yet to come. Rick grips the wheel of a black, open-top Jeep as snow flurries cascade from the gray skies. The tires crunch over the icy road, leaving faint tracks in the freshly fallen snow. Sparrow sits beside him, her gaze fixed on the surrounding frost-bitten wilderness. The cold wind whips past them, but neither speaks as they focus on their journey ahead. Rick's thoughts wander to the struggles they've endured, burning memories of the giant puppet and the losses they've faced along the way. The snow-covered road stretches endlessly, flanked by skeletal trees coated in ice. Despite the biting chill, Rick's determination burns like a fire within. After a long, tense drive, they finally reach a desolate, snow-dusted outpost. The Jeep skids to a halt as Rick surveys the surroundings. Tall, jagged mountains loom in the distance, and an eerie silence blankets the area. Sparrow dismounts quietly, scanning the horizon with a cautious look. The episode begins as Rick and Sparrow brace themselves for the unknown dangers that lie ahead. Rick curses under his breath as the Jeep's tire gets stuck in a cleverly hidden trap. He steps out into the snow, his boots crunching loudly against the icy ground, and kneels to inspect the damage. Sparrow stays alert, her eyes darting around the eerily quiet outpost. Suddenly, the ground trembles slightly. Rick stands up, his weapon at the ready. Emerging from the misty snowfall is a towering figure, a giant of a man. He wears black pants and an open black shirt, revealing a chiseled, scarred torso that glistens faintly in the cold air. In his massive hands, he wields a colossal hammer, its surface marred by dents and dried blood. The giant man glares at Rick and Sparrow with an expression of both fury and primal rage. Without a word, he charges forward, hammer raised high. Rick doesn't hesitate. Raising his G3 rifle, he fires a burst directly at the giant's head. The bullets find their mark, but the man barely falters, shaking off the impact as if it were nothing more than a mosquito bite. He swings his hammer with terrifying force, narrowly missing Rick, the weapon's impact sending snow and debris flying into the air. Rick continues firing, aiming for the giant's head and chest. Each shot chips away at the man's seemingly endless vitality. Sparrow moves to cover, her hand on her weapon, ready to assist if needed. As the giant's health bar drops to 4 of 5, he lets out a guttural roar, staggering backward. Instead of attacking again, he turns and bolts toward a set of ancient stone stairs partially buried in snow. Rick shouts after him and gives chase, his boots pounding against the frozen ground. Sparrow follows close behind, her breath visible in the freezing air. But just as they near the staircase, the giant vanishes into thin air, leaving behind only faint footprints that disappear into the snow. Rick stops at the base of the stairs, gripping his weapon tightly and scanning the area. Rick kneels down to carefully disarm and remove the trap embedded in the snow-covered ground. His hands work swiftly, guided by experience, until the mechanism clicks harmlessly apart. With the path clear, he gets back. The snowing road ahead leads to an open expanse surrounded by towering statues and ancient walls. His instincts on high alert. Suddenly, the faint glint of a sniper's scope catches his eye. "Snipers," Rick mutters under his breath. He halts behind a cluster of rocks for cover. Sparrow stays low as Rick grabs his sniper rifle and carefully peers through the scope. He spots 7 snipers perched high on the framework of a massive statue, their positions giving them a clear vantage point. 3 more are stationed on the wall to the left, their rifles trained on the road below. Rick exhales slowly, steadies his aim, and fires. His first shot takes down a sniper on the statue frame, the body tumbling lifelessly into the snow. Without wasting a second, Rick shifts his aim to the next target. Another shot, another takedown. But the snipers are quick to retaliate. A bullet grazes the rock near Rick's cover, sending a spray of stone shards into the air. Rick ducks down, adjusts his position, and fires again, this time missing by inches as his shot echoes across the frozen expanse. "Stay low," he warns Sparrow as another bullet whizzes by. Rick recalibrates, focusing on the snipers on the wall. 1, 2, 3, he takes them out with precise shots, but not without a few close calls. A missed shot leaves him vulnerable for a brief moment, forcing him to roll behind cover as a sniper locks onto his position. "Damn it," Rick mutters, wiping snow from his scope. He shifts his focus back to the statue. The remaining snipers are more cautious now, their movements calculated. Rick fires at one crouching behind a statue's arm, the bullet striking true. Sparrow gestures to another hidden in the shadows of the framework, and Rick takes the shot, eliminating the threat. Finally, with the last sniper neutralized, Rick lowers his rifle and scans the area. The battlefield is silent once more, save for the soft sound of snow falling. He turns to Sparrow, nodding. "Clear." They move forward cautiously, Rick keeping his weapon ready. The towering statues and crumbling walls loom ominously over the path ahead. With the snipers neutralized, Rick and Sparrow press onward, their footsteps crunching on the snowy path as they approach a grand staircase leading to a massive, decrepit museum building. The imposing structure looms against the stormy sky, its towering facade partially obscured by falling snow. As they near the base of the stairs, a sudden mechanical work catches Rick's attention. He halts, scanning the skies. Out of the swirling snow, 2 groups of drones emerge, their metallic forms gleaming as they swoop down in attack formation. Rick grips his flamethrower tightly, his jaw set in determination. The first group of drones descends rapidly, their weapons firing bursts of energy. Rick reacts swiftly, igniting the air with a torrent of fire. The flames roar to life, engulfing the drones. They spark and explode, raining debris onto the snow-covered ground. The second group attempts to flank them, diving from the right. Rick pivots, unleashing another fiery blast. The drones scatter, trying to evade, but the fire consumes them one by one, sending their charred remains clattering to the ground. Before they can catch their breath, the distant shouts of guards echo from the staircase. From the base and the sides of the wide stone stairs, multiple groups of armed guards emerge, charging toward them with rifles and melee weapons. Rick steadies his flamethrower and takes a defensive stance. As the first group reaches the base of the stairs, he unleashes a sweeping wave of flames. The fire spreads rapidly, forcing the guards into disarray. Those caught in the inferno collapse, their weapons clattering as they fall. Sparrow stays close behind Rick, keeping a keen eye on their surroundings as more guards rush in. Rick methodically advances up the staircase, flames blazing ahead of him. The guards' attempts to overwhelm them are futile against the unrelenting firestorm. The intense heat from the flamethrower melts the snow, creating hissing steam that rises in thick clouds. The air becomes suffused with smoke and the acrid smell of burning, masking the cold bite of the wind. As they climb higher, reinforcements pour out from the museum entrance. Rick remains unyielding, turning the staircase into a fiery gauntlet. The flames consume everything in their path, clearing the way forward with ruthless efficiency. At last, they reach the summit of the staircase. The towering museum doors stand before them, weathered and partially open, revealing a dark and foreboding interior. Rick exhales, the flamethrower still glowing hot in his hands. With a quick glance at Sparrow, who nods in silent agreement, Rick steps forward, his flamethrower lighting the way as they enter the belly of the colossal structure. Rick strides through the grand museum entrance, his flamethrower gripped firmly in his hands, casting flickering light along the shadowy corridor. The sound of his boots echoes against the marble walls as he moves with urgency, Sparrow trailing closely behind. The corridor leads into a reception area, the remnants of its former grandeur now reduced to decay. A shattered desk lies against the wall, papers strewn across the floor, and old chandeliers sway gently from the occasional draft. Rick doesn't pause, his focus set ahead as he navigates through the eerie silence. Pushing through the broken doors at the end of the reception area, Rick enters a vast, dimly lit hall. The air inside is heavy, and the distant sound of dripping water punctuates the oppressive stillness. His eyes immediately lock onto the centerpiece of the room, a towering iron cage, its bars thick and reinforced, sitting ominously in the center of the hall. Within the cage, a grotesque creature stirs. Its form is an unsettling blend of human and spider, with elongated, spindly limbs and a torso that vaguely resembles a human figure. Its face is distorted, almost human but twisted into something unnatural, with sharp mandibles protruding from its jaw. 8 gleaming eyes reflect the faint light, watching Rick with unsettling intelligence. Rick steps cautiously closer, his flamethrower ready. He stops just a few feet from the cage, staring at the abomination before him. The creature's movements are erratic, its spider-like legs tapping against the floor of the cage as it shifts its weight. Sparrow stands behind Rick, her gaze fixed on the monstrous being. The tension in the room is palpable, the cage creaking ominously as the creature moves within it. Rick's jaw tightens as he surveys the cage, his mind racing with possibilities. The creature lets out a low, guttural growl, its mandibles clicking together as if testing its restraints. The hall feels like it's holding its breath, the confrontation between man and monster teetering on the edge of chaos. Rick stands motionless in front of the cage, his flamethrower at the ready, eyes locked onto the grotesque creature within. The hall's oppressive silence is suddenly shattered by the sound of heavy boots striking against metal. Above, on the second floor, Mikhail, the towering man who had fled earlier, leaps down from a broken balcony. His massive frame lands with a thunderous crash, sending shards of stone and dust into the air. He's just as imposing as before, his black pants and unbuttoned shirt revealing his muscular physique. The massive hammer in his hands gleams ominously under the flickering lights. Rick reacts instantly, slinging his flamethrower aside and pulling out his G3 rifle. Mikhail lets out a guttural roar, charging toward Rick with terrifying speed. The first shot rings out, striking Mikhail in the shoulder, but he barely flinches. Rick fires again, hitting his chest, but the hulking man keeps advancing, swinging his hammer in a wide arc. Rick ducks just in time, the hammer smashing into a pillar behind him, sending chunks of stone flying. Sparrow moves to the side, finding cover as Rick continues to fire, each shot chipping away at Mikhail's strength. The battle is brutal and relentless, Rick dodging each devastating swing while landing calculated shots to slow Mikhail down. With his health bar nearing depletion, Mikhail staggers back, blood seeping from his wounds. Rick seizes the moment, firing a final burst directly at Mikhail's head. The giant collapses to the ground with a thunderous thud, his hammer slipping from his grasp. Rick lowers his rifle, catching his breath. The hall seems to settle, but only for a moment. A loud creak fills the room, followed by the groaning sound of metal under pressure. Rick's eyes dart back to the cage, where the lock suddenly snaps open. The bars swing wide, and the grotesque spider-like creature lets out an ear-piercing screech, stepping out of its confinement with terrifying intent. As the spider-like creature lunges from its cage, Rick moves with lightning speed. He pulls 2 traps from his gear and slams them onto the ground in a practiced motion, their mechanisms whirring to life. The creature's many legs scuttle across the floor with horrifying agility, its eyes glowing with murderous intent as it zeroes in on Rick. Just as the creature leaps into the air to attack, the traps activate with a sharp hiss. A burst of freezing energy erupts, catching the monster midair. It lets out a shriek of frustration as its body becomes encased in ice, frozen in an eerie, suspended pose. Rick wastes no time. He raises his G3 rifle and begins firing in controlled bursts, aiming at the creature's vulnerable joints and core. The bullets rip through its frozen form, cracking the ice and tearing into its flesh-like exoskeleton. The creature thrashes violently as the ice begins to break apart, but Rick continues his relentless assault, each shot finding its mark. Finally, with one last echoing screech, the creature collapses to the ground, defeated. Rick approaches cautiously, inspecting the remains. Among the debris, he finds a glowing, pulsating organ, the thorn spider sample. He carefully extracts it, its strange energy radiating in his gloved hands. Without hesitation, Rick places the sample into a secure containment box nearby, guarded by 2 heavily armed guards in black tactical gear. The guards nod silently as Rick secures the box, ensuring it is locked tight. Sparrow steps up beside him, her expression unreadable but clearly ready for whatever comes next. The room falls silent again, the tension finally dissipating. Rick takes a deep breath, shouldering his rifle, and exchanges a determined look with Sparrow. "Let's move," his eyes seem to say. The pair turns toward the exit, leaving the eerie hall and its deadly secrets behind. After securing the thorn spider sample, Rick wastes no time leaving the treacherous area. With a steady sprint, he makes his way through the snow-covered terrain toward the waiting helicopter. The sound of its blades slicing through the air grows louder as Rick approaches, his breath visible in the frosty air. He boards swiftly, giving a nod to the pilot before the helicopter lifts off, carrying him away from the chaos. The journey is brief but tense, the camp coming into view as the helicopter descends. As Rick steps out onto the snowy landing zone, he's immediately struck by surprise. Sparrow is there, waiting for him. She stands with an air of quiet confidence, as if she's been expecting him all along. Without a word, Sparrow gestures for Rick to follow her. Intrigued and slightly bewildered, he does so. They move through the bustling camp, its activity a stark contrast to the desolation Rick has just left behind. Sparrow leads him to a large, imposing manor at the edge of the camp. Inside the manor's cozy yet grand interior, Sparrow motions toward a table in the sitting room. On it, a neatly arranged stack of files catches Rick's attention. Sparrow's expression softens as she steps forward, her presence more relaxed than usual. She points to the files, clearly conveying her excitement. Rick's gaze flickers between Sparrow and the files as the realization sets in. She's explaining, without speaking, that Nazar, the camp's leader, has officially allowed her to join. Sparrow will now live here, and the files symbolize her integration into the camp's community. Sparrow's happiness is evident, her calm demeanor unable to mask the sense of belonging she feels in this moment. Rick, though stoic as ever, gives a subtle nod of acknowledgement. As the two stand in the quiet room, the camp outside hums with life. This moment marks a new chapter for Sparrow, and for Rick, it's a rare reprieve, a reminder that even in a world ravaged by chaos, small victories and connections can still shine through. On survival, together.